Hi, my name's Alex, and what you're about to see is a short edited version of an hour-long webinar we held on the 20th of March for the Climate Heroes competition. The focus of the webinar was consumption, and we had representatives from a few different community groups who talked about the issue from a global perspective and then shared some things that were really interesting that were happening locally or some things they wanted to see happen in their local area. I hope you enjoy.
So, hi everyone, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. So this is part of the webinar series that connects with the Climate Heroes Community Climate Challenge 2024. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with Climate Heroes, basically Climate Heroes is a competition we'll be running for community groups up and down the country between the 15th of April and the 26th of April. And the idea is that you'll be logging actions, or participants in the competition will be logging actions to try to reduce their carbon footprint and to show some of the amazing things that community groups can do when they're working together in collaborating and joining together, showing our outsized impact that we have and the impacts we can make on our carbon footprint on a day-to-day basis. But these webinars are aiming to contribute, sort of complement that a little in a way. And with these webinars, we're going to be looking at the competition themes of consumption, energy, food and transportation, but we're going to take them and we're going to break them down a little bit, and we're going to do two things that I think should be really interesting and really exciting. First of all, we're going to sort of look at how these big global issues connect with our local day-to-day lives and the actions that we can take throughout the competition and otherwise. And we're also going to bring in questions around climate justice and sort of try to see why climate change is a global justice issue, and try to kind of connect the things that we're doing with some of these bigger themes. I also want to give space to discuss and share and learn some really positive projects that either you're involved in or you've heard about as well. So that's going to be the second half essentially of the of this hour webinar we'll be on. And then finally, I suppose it's about kind of giving you space to connect and to get motivated and to hear a little bit from other groups that are involved in the room as well. So I suppose I wanted to start off because the theme, the point of these webinars is to kind of try to look a little bit at, get a bit more of a deep dive into the into some of these topics that we're talking about. And one of the big themes within the competition is around consumption. And so I kind of just started, I thought we might kick off with this one question, which is, why? We know that consumption perhaps is a problem. We've seen statistics around, supply chains. We've seen things around waste that, in the world, locally and globally as well. But I suppose just at the end of the day, why do we consume goods and services? Is my question that I wanted to kick off with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you annotate this. So in the bottom left corner of the screen, you should see a pen. If you click on the pen in the bottom left corner of the screen, you might be able to choose your text and then just write your answer, or just even a couple of words that come to mind. So we've got needs and habits. Thank you so much. Those are great. Okay. I suppose then kind of some of the other answers are there's a kind of a different variety of answers there. Some people kind of focused on this idea of advertising, right? So that some of the messages that we're receiving from advertisers, perhaps from influencers, from sort of any break in any radio show or TV program, kind of it seems to advertise something new to us all the time as well. So yeah, that's one of the things that sort of motivates people, I guess, towards greater consumption. And then this idea of habit, I think, is really, really interesting. Perhaps we buy things, perhaps we spend money because of some of these habits that we have developed, maybe that that could be broken down a little bit more, could be examined a bit more closely. I suppose all of those viewpoints I think are really important, right? We need to consume to a certain amount to stay alive, but I think people often, when we're talking about consumption, we kind of talk about consumption and overconsumption in the same breath, thinking about how sort of some countries or some people's passion for overconsumption or consumption at perhaps a higher rate than other people has gotten us into this I suppose this climate crisis that we're talking about as well. So I wanted to maybe kind of introduce a few different perspectives that other people might say around consumption. And these are taken from a few different places across the internet. I've been doing a little bit of research in the last couple of days. And I suppose I wanted to just introduce some other ideas. You know, some people have said to survive, some people have said to meet needs. But I guess here are a few other kind of perspectives around our patterns of consumption and some of the challenges that are involved in it.
I'd like to summarise the following discussion for you because it went on for a few minutes, but two kind of big themes came up. The first one was around the difference between citizens' action and consumers' actions, as was explored by the speaker in the fifth segment. And one of the participants linked this idea of overconsumption to well-being, and that perhaps in our consumption in our modern models of consumption, there's not much space left for well-being, and that can be filled maybe by approaching the world more as a citizen than as a consumer. The other issue that was explored through the discussion was this idea of government action versus people's action, and that a couple of people were asking, well, how effective can people be by themselves without government support? Whereas a couple of other people on the call were arguing that governments will only do what people ask them to do, and what it's clear will get them elected as well. And so putting pressure on people in power is the thing that will actually shift the dial on climate change. If you have any responses to any of those, please leave them in the comments below. All right, on with the show.
We're kind of going in this direction anyway, so I think I would like to just hear a little bit more from you and the things that your group are doing locally to change maybe how we consume in our local areas, or if not something that you're already doing, something that you'd really like to see. And yeah, so I think kind of, you know, Eimear's the discussion of that of the urban park there might be not directly related to consumption. I think does sort of testify to the sort of that the achievements that people power can make there. Because I really think that sort of what we're doing here with Climate Heroes tries to be sort of almost that way of kind of engaging people that are a little bit outside the sort of, you know, the kind of, I mean, obviously sort of the reason you're joining us here this evening, I think, is because you have a passion or an interest in climate action and in environmental issues. And I think, and thank you. But I suppose kind of the challenge is how do we get beyond that sort of bubble that we're constantly in, and maybe kind of find ways to sort of extend to those neighbours who might ordinarily say complain to the council if they saw long grass in the estate, for example. And so that's one of the things I guess that we're trying to do with Climate Heroes. The two components, obviously the challenge and the I'll come back to that in a second, and the sort of these webinars as well. I'm just going to wrap up by just kind of giving a couple of plugs. I had a lot to say to you, and I suppose I think that yeah, actually, you know what, I'm going to leave that for the second and say it's so yeah. With Climate Heroes, then the idea is that with these webinars, sorry, not with the webinars, with the online platform, the competition's running between April the 15th and 26th. The idea is that anybody in your community can join a team, can participate, can log these climate-friendly actions that they're taking. And you can see on the left in very small writing, I think, you know, sort of encouraging, I wasted no food today. If that's an action that you log, right, great, then you've reduced your carbon footprint by this much. You know, I walked or took a bike to work, you've reduced your carbon footprint by this much as well. So just by sort of logging these individual actions, you know, people are kind of are logging, they're reflecting, hopefully they're kind of having those conversations around that estate. And so when the idea of, you know, of keeping the grass, you know, low mow for the next, you know, next year comes up, then sort of, you know, that conversation is being had in a different space. So for those of you that have joined Climate Heroes, fantastic, excellent. That's really, really brilliant. For those of you that are yet to do so, we'd love to have you on climateheroes.ie. And Kathleen also shared her own Facebook group, which is absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. I have another one for you as well, which I'm about to pop in the chat. And that's a place where we hope to share updates and sort of mid moments from the meeting. So for example, I'm going to go and look for the St. Patrick in Cups, and I'm going to be popping it up on the Act Together Facebook group. I'll also be sharing links to the time banks, and also try and get somebody, maybe if I can get an article or some piece written from a cup-free town, or a town that has successfully gone plastic cup-free. That would be a really interesting insight to share in that space. The idea is that, you know, the things that come up over the course of the contest, we'll be sharing and kind of pooling our ideas and kind of sharing things that we really like. So yeah. So Climate Heroes information sign up is in there. To just very quickly finish up then, Climate Heroes is also a sorry, the project itself. It's great that you mentioned Irish Aid, actually, Mary, because Irish Aid fund both Climate Heroes and our wider global citizenship education projects. And the idea basically is to do all the things that we've been doing, kind of taking that global perspective, trying to link it to issues of global justice, try to understand why local action is relevant in a global, or is important, is so needed in a global world, and kind of try to sort of draw those things that, you know, far too often we think this is a global problem, you know, people living over in whatever country is their problem, but kind of just trying to start to understand how these things are connected and bring them together. One of the ways that we do that is by teaching, by building knowledge around the Sustainable Development Goals, and that's a project that we can work with, perhaps with some community groups as well. And we can also offer some support in action planning and trying to bring in sort of global justice or climate justice themes into projects that you're already working on as well. So if that is interesting, there's also the workshop inquiry email in our thing as well. All right, thank you so much. It was lovely seeing you. Now, my next week, the session focuses on transport, and it will be facilitated by my colleague, Niamh Ní Fhíocha. So if you're interested, we'd love to have you along. Really enjoyed this conversation, hearing about the things that are happening in your local areas. And we'll should have a guest speaker as well who's focused on some activities they're doing around transportation as well. So thank you so much for your time. Really lovely spending an hour this evening with you.
Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you have enjoyed it, and we'd love to have you along at one of the following Climate Heroes webinars. They are happening on Wednesday the 27th of March, then one after that is on the 3rd of April, and after that then it's on the 10th of April. We'll be looking at the themes of transportation, food and energy respectively, and we're hoping to have community members from loads of different groups around the country come on and share some really interesting ideas. So if you think you have a great project that you'd like to share, please feel free to come along and talk about it on one of the next webinars. Thanks so much, and I hope to see you at one of them. Bye.